Hey folks, how's it going? Today I want to talk to you about some of the changes I made to my table saw here to make it run a little bit better for me. Anybody that uses cheap saws knows that they don't cut very wide and the fence system absolutely sucks. But a lot of advice out there about how to improve it, make it a little bit, make it better. So what I did, I took a little bit from different people out there that that have done similar things, and I just pieced it together to make it something that would work for me. So let's start with this fence. This is a Biesmeyer style fence, and I got this idea from a guy named Richard Morley. He's another YouTuber, and I'll link to his video on this. And it's just the fence itself, not this locking mechanism. So just pay attention to the fence right now, folks. I'm not going to go into much detail at all because he covers it pretty thoroughly. Almost an exact copy of his, except for my dimensions are different. I think his is narrower than mine, and I used 3/4 inch plywood, and he only used 1/2 inch. Check out his video; you can get the details from him. The rest of this top the idea came from Matthias over at woodgears.ca. He built a homemade table saw, and he needed a rip fence for it. So he came up with this rail system here, and I borrowed from his idea on the rail system to do this, which, like he says, it's just a T-square. This board is milled down with 1/2 inch notches cut on either side because I used a 1/2 inch thick sheet of MDF. Very similar to his, but I did make some changes that I really think improve upon the idea. And Matthias may or may not agree, but what I did different was that instead of putting a washer on the back of this piece of plywood to keep my bolt from digging in, I used a strip of aluminum running all the way across. That way my locking bolt has a nice flat surface to press into. It doesn't, and there's really not much deflection as it tightens down. Change number 2 was instead of using rubber bands to secure this wooden C-clamp so it doesn't flop away from the fence and the table, I used just a couple of screws. I cut a groove here, started out with drill bits, punched a few holes, then I went in with a chisel and knocked out the middles, and then I cleaned it up with my jigsaw. And it allowed me to put these 2 screws in this channel here, this slot, and it lets this slide back and forth, which gives me slack that I need to move my fence around my tabletop. And then I'll adjust the washers, keep it from keep the screw heads from falling through, and it's just loose enough that it can move, so I don't have to worry about this falling away. It's always right there. Biggest change, biggest difference that I added in. Got to take credit for this one. I hadn't seen anybody else doing this. This strip of aluminum here, it's 3/4 inch by 1/8 inch aluminum. Bought it as an 8-foot stick, and I just cut it down with a hacksaw. You'll notice that all these mounting screws are below the midline, and the reason for that is these 2 adjustment screws here and here. So here and here. That way, if my fence is not perfectly parallel to my blade, all I have to do is back out one of those adjustment screws. And all those screws are, they're hex cap screws. I think they're 5/32, little bitty tiny things. And that way, just back one out, it'll press against this aluminum, and it will adjust my fence whichever way I need to adjust it. And the whole purpose of the aluminum is so that it doesn't dig in. If without this aluminum, it would gouge into the wood, and you would be constantly adjusting. The adjustment screw would get stuck, and it just wouldn't be worth it. So I did this instead of trying to disassemble this and make micro adjustments on with my fence in relation to this this mount. It was too big of a hassle for me. So I did this instead. And several guys out there have done this. They put a piece of plywood on top of their table saw, and they make a fence. But the thing, they tell you how important it is to get it as square as possible, but the one thing they don't tell you is how to get this top square to your deck. And so what I did, once I got this together, and the fence is square to the guide, which is square to the rail, so I know that my fence is perfectly square to the front face of my MDF. 2 foot by 4 foot sheet of MDF right off the shelf. I didn't do anything special to it. I just milled this down and glued it together and got started. And so what I did was, since I knew all this was square, I also found out that that my fence is not square to the back of this MDF. This corner is off by just a bit, so I couldn't use the back edge for reference. So what I did was, once I got this in place and locked down, I just slid the entire assembly forward a little bit, gave myself some working room off the back. Pressed a sheet of plywood up against the back, so there was a gap between the MDF and the plywood. Let me drop in a speed square unimpeded by the MDF, and I was able to square the fence using the plywood as a reference. And once I got that square, I locked everything down. Now first I did kind of halfway eyeball an overhang. I think this came out to just under 6 inches. There was no rhyme or reason behind it. I just said, yep, that looks good right about there, and then I squared it up and clamped it down. So big issue for me was repeatability, because I can't just leave this set up. I mean, you see, folks, we're in my garage right now. Sometimes I'm working in my garage, sometimes it's in the driveway, sometimes it's in the backyard, but this saw is constantly broken down and put back together wherever I'm working that particular day. And I didn't want to have to fool with trying to align this this top just with this. Okay, you raise the blade up and arm wrestle it around to try to get it to drop directly on the slot, and then call it good enough, and then worry about whether or not my fence is still parallel with my blade. So what I did was, after I got it clamped into place, I built a frame on the underside of this. And this is what it looks like. Just 2x4, some are ripped in half, some have, like this one is 2.5 inches. This one is almost a full 4, and you see the ones on the side, they're much smaller, just 2x4 ripped in half. What that does, it gives me repeatability. It goes back in the same place every single time. I don't have to worry about it, and this thing is solid. The top is very solid. The movement you see, that's my stand. It wiggles. I haven't braced my stand very thoroughly. I need to do that too. So it's solid. It doesn't move. So every time that I raise the blade, it comes right through that slot. And I don't know if you can see it. The camera's pretty dead on the blade, but it comes right through. So after I raised the blade through the to make the slot, dropped it back down, took my jigsaw, and I elongated the slot to make room for my riving knife. Saw a riving knife pop right through, no problems at all. And this, this whole system here, it slides on nice and easy, locks down nice and tight, and it's consistent. So this is it, folks. Just something to note. I could not have done this without a jointer. I've got a 6-inch 2-blade jointer. Picked it up for $250. Brand new, no sale, no anything. Just went and picked it up off the shelf. And so far it's been great. You have to mill these boards down. The sides you want to get as me anyway. I wanted my sides as square, these side rails as square as possible, so I could get them in as tight as possible. And that way they weren't twisted or anything. That way that helped really secure it down. And this, you really need to run it through a jointer so you can get those straight true edges and that one corner, surfaces. And then that one 90-degree corner so you can reference off of to make the rest of your cuts. Otherwise, you're cutting a crooked board. So, and really, folks, if you're looking to make this kind of a modification to a table saw, you're probably ready for more precise cuts anyway, and a jointer is really going to help you with that. So, check my description, folks. That way you can find Richard's video, Matthias's video. Matthias actually has plans for this. He walks you through it, how this kind of comes together. Check out their videos. Give those guys a watch. Any questions, send them my way in the comments, and thanks for watching.